How's it going, people? Salmon Slappy here, and this is Runescape lore. And basically we take a look at everything that happened in the past of Runescape itself and take a little bit of a closer look at NPCs in the game and things like that. So today we're going to be covering the 5th Age. I covered the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th a while back, but the 5th Age, as you may know, basically consisted of pretty much the entire lifespan of Runescape itself. So yeah, quite a lot of things happened. So with that in mind, this is going to be a kind of brief overview of some of the major events that happened throughout the 5th Age. It's not going to include every single tiny little thing, but it will include the major ones. So, with that said, let's get started. So the 5th Age itself, in comparison to the other ages, was relatively short, and it was a time of amazing strides for the human race. It granted many humans dominance throughout the central areas of Gielinor, largely due to the discovery of runecrafting at the end of the 4th Age. This, in turn, earned the 5th Age the title of the Age of Man. Positive advances in humanity's lifestyle included military, technology, theology, philosophical, and political and economic strides. The final year of the Age was arguably the most dramatic one within history to date, with numerous important events taking place. So, starting off in the year 7 of the 5th Age was the Battle of Ardougne. This is where the Marjaraz Hazil and Khazad, who had established a large territory north and east of the Treenome village, started to meet increasing resistance from local humans. As such, Hazil takes measures by storing a powerful spell to revive himself just in case of defeat within his stronghold. It was not long after this the peasants, led by a man by the name of Carnelian, decided to assault Hazil's stronghold and in turn did actually manage to defeat him. However, they were unable to kill him. They did manage to put him into a state of torpor before his body was taken away by his cult though. Upon doing this, Carnelian takes the stronghold as his own mansion, and soon enough the city of Ardougne was slowly built around the area. Meanwhile, Khazad continues to expand his army around his fight arena. Next is the construction of the Wizard's Tower. We're not actually sure the date of this, but we can only assume it's at the very early 5th Age. And it was due to the discovery of runecrafting, the human world sees an exponential influx of magical practice and study. 4 orders of wizards were made. These were the Blue Order worshipping Saradomin, the Red worshipping Zamorak, the Green worshipping Guthix, and the Grey Order who worshipped miscellaneous gods. And it was these 4 orders that ended up building a tower south of Draenor village. The Wizard's Tower, along with the Wizards Guild within Yanil, soon became the epicenter of magical research and sees the invention and discovery of many kinds of spells. In the year 9 of the 5th Age was the construction of the Mage Training Arena. Increases in rune production led to wider availability of magic, which in turn led to an increase in magical injuries. The Wizard's Tower decided to build an arena between Varick and Alcarid where wizards could practice more dangerous forms of magic. This was under the protection of Rune Guardians, animated golems, and when one of the head wizards suffers an accident, they were cared for by those. In the 12th year of the 5th Age, you discovered the use of astronomy again. The plans of Scorpius are rediscovered and used to construct a large telescope in an old observatory south of Ardougne, which subsequently was ended up renovated. Soon, however, local goblins began causing havoc, running amok in the tunnels beneath the observatory and taking the surrounding area for themselves. In the years 17 to 20 of the 5th Age, the Varick Sewers were soon constructed. In the 17th year, King Botolf, the monarch of Varick at the time, commissions the construction of a sewer system for Varick Paris. However, the plans changed several times during its construction, and by the time the sewers are actually completed, in the year 20, they extend beneath the entire city. The excavations of the tunnels required work of hundreds of miners and saw many complications, such as groups of moss giants and deadly red spiders ended up taking residence there. Next is the attack of Delrith the Demon. This was in the year 19. A very powerful demon that went by the name of Delrith decides to attack Varick after being summoned by a cult of dark wizards, but before he can inflict any significant damage he is met by the hero Wally Bach, who was a miner in the sewers, using the demon-slaying sword Silverlight and a special chant noted in a tome of demonology. Wally manages to actually banish Delrith back into the infernal dimensions. Soon after this, in the year 20, the Void Knights were soon reformed. 5 years after having a dream wherein Guthix warns him for an upcoming threat to balance, Admiral Drac Melrose breathed new life into the Void Knights, an ancient military order which was founded and abolished during the Gillenorian God Wars. From 98 onwards, the Void Knights are restricted to Tavali on orders of the King of Asgarnia, who wants his kingdom to be exclusively Saradominist. In the same year, gnome gliders were soon invented. Based on his father Oaknock's models, the gnome engineer Unock invents a new method of air transportation. This was the gnome gliders. Using 2 wings and a large surface area to build a high air resistance, the gliders are successfully tested by Captain Ninto and Deerkin, amongst others. And it was used to carry a gnome safely to various locations kilometers away from the Grand Tree. Soon, military gliders are also built by the gnomish army's usage. In the year 23 was the defeat of the northern Mauritania. Lord Draken's vampires were taken full control over the northern Mauritania region. Humans in Canifis transform into monstrous werewolves, but it is unknown how this metamorphosis occurs. Those living under the lordship of the North Coast managed to stand up against the influence of vampires for the time being. In the year 42 to the year 62 of the 5th Age was the Runecrafting Crusades. These were led by Chieftain Gunnar. A large group of Fenric launch a brutal campaign to rid the world of runecrafting, which they still deem exclusive to the gods. They systematically destroy the temples the Moon Clan had constructed, but are unable to harm the runecrafting altars themselves due to them being a pocket dimensions. Additionally, the Fremennik annihilate the Imcando doors for their use of the superheat item, leaving extremely few survivors and reduce Camdazal to rubble. In the year 47, Fremennik sympathizers destroy the mage training arena. After 20 years, the barbarians' forces are wavering, and so they settle west of Varick with the intention of regrouping and continuing their mission. However, this did not actually happen. In the year 169, this village is soon named Gunnar's Grun. Sometime in the early 5th Age as well was the end of the Gnome Golden Age. As King Herthog the Great's life comes to an end, so does the Golden Age of the Gnomes, and elections soon begin. Soon the 2 candidates are Prince Arganthorg, Helthorg's son, and Bolroy, the popular ruler of the Tree Gnome village, aided by his advisor no less. Unbeknownst to everyone though, this advisor is really Groffrey the Untrusted in disguise, planning to take over the kingdom by using illusions to put Arganthorg in a bad light and using Bolry as his pawn. However, Gloffrey's illusion is foiled by Unock and he flees back to Arposandra, while an ashamed Bolry forfeits the election, leading to the crowning of Arganthorg and Bolry's family being forced to live underground. Bolry makes it his sole purpose to find and destroy Gloffrey, and leaves in search of Arposandra. But he is injured in the Galavos before being rescued by the elves of Lethia. Gloffrey manipulations had caused Bolry to declare war on General Khazad. However, this actually resulted in a violent series of battles that still are ongoing to this day. In the year 67 was the Battle of the Czar City. For reasons unknown, a group of lesser demons living inside Karamja Volcano begin to attack the entrance to the Tsar City, killing Zahul Bul, a guardsman. Tsar Ket-Kad quickly responds and proceeds to ward off the demons. Eventually, he does manage to repel all demons completely by himself, single-handedly saving the city in the process. In the year 69 was the imprisonment of the Culinarimancer. As the Lumbridge Secret Council assemble for their decennial meeting, a powerful and malicious food wizard known as the Culinariomancer threatens the council with death. Consequently, the council's cook assistant, Franizard van Lumcook, prepares a spell that imprisons the Culinariomancer within his own realm, saving the council. As a reward, his family is granted the exclusive position of Castle Cook. In the year 70 was the burning of the Wizard's Tower. In the Wizard's Tower, the problem of teleportation is solved after years, and Master Zamaran the Red prepares a ritual to install a teleportation beam, which would serve as an anchor for all future teleportation spells. However, due to the Blue Wizard departing in the middle of the ritual on the ground that it was based on demonic magic, the developing teleportation beam becomes unstable, and soon unleashes raw magical energy in a massive explosion, resulting in the destruction of the tower and the death of all wizards present, except for Perion the Blue and Celevan the Red. The Zamorakian mages are blamed and, as you'd expect, public outrage follows, leading to discrimination against Zamorakians in general and even persecution. The furious Celevan founds an organization to avenge his order and himself. Meanwhile, Perion constructs the second wizard tower, and becomes its first archmage. For reasons unknown, the accident enters the annals as Operation Phoenix, a supposed attack orchestrated by Zamorakians that caused the tower to burn down. In the same year was the exile of the Dagonhai. Although tensions between the Zamorakian Dagonhai wizards and the Church of Saradomin had been high ever since the former settled in Varick, the fall of the first wizard's tower signals a mass eruption of anti-Zamorakian hatred, which even the Dagonhai cannot resist. Many are soon murdered, and as such the organization soon retreats to the dark alleys of the cities. The High Elders prepare a sacrificial ritual to avenge themselves. However, they're spotted by a guard who calls for all available forces to arrive. Realizing they will be soon slaughtered, the Elders stay behind as defense while the other mages flee to the wilderness and the Tunnels of Chaos, located beneath a statue of Saradomin just outside of Varick. Elders Lanau, Kreenag and Dageth meet their end, and the leadership of the organization is taken over by Heref Sinkach Magus. In the year 76 of the Fifth Age was the Great Carpet Crash. The Sultan was full faith in his new magic carpet and tested out by jumping off the roof of the Al-Kharid Palace onto it, unaware that he had taken a regular carpet. Unsurprisingly, he falls quickly to his death, and all magic carpets are outlawed for over 90 years following his death. It is currently unknown who succeeds him, for in the year 169 there is both an emir as well as a sultan. The years 95 to 98 were the dreaded years of tragedy. This was because a group of Zamorakians living in an outpost built in the year 30 to the northwest of Ardougne continuously causes havoc over the course of the 3 years. Finally, in the year of 98, the government has enough and sends a large enough army to the outpost to end the dreaded years of tragedy. Very heavy casualties were to ensue though, and after the battle, which is said to have resulted in only one survivor on both sides, a truce is soon agreed upon. The two, who were old friends, settled their differences after the great battle by both embracing Guthixianism and bringing an end to these dreaded years. In the year 101, 3 years after the great battle, the two Guthixians make drastic changes in Ardougne. One goes on to become the first king of the Ardigians. Ardignus. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. Ardignus, I'm pretty sure it is. And most likely officially founds Kandarin itself, while the other founds the Ardougne market to promote trade. This brings Ardougne, which had been ruled by the Carnelians until that point, into a new era as a capital of a kingdom. Sometime within the Middle Ages of the Fifth Age, the reign of Mad Narus came to an end. After his death, the founder of Kandarin is succeeded by his son Narus. Soon, however, Narus's reign turns sour when he invents a game called Hangman, which involves the guessing of a word by guessing its letters. However, if the word is not guessed after a certain amount of turns, one of the players, the hangman, is literally hanged. To the shock of the Ardognese people, after Narus's fairly short reign, his son Ulthus becomes king. Meanwhile, Hangman continues to be played, albeit without actually executing people. It was at the same time that the Eastern Sea Civil War took place. The famous pirate Jack, captain of the Albatross, and his fleet assault pirate port Mosler Harmless. This was under Gentleman Mallard. The pirate council manages to repel the attack, sending Rabid Jack and his fleet fleeing in the cursed Archipelago to the south though. Due to his terrorizing the oceans, the Customs and Excise Office launches an anti-piracy campaign, actively persecuting smugglers and pirates and sending them to the Rock Prison. At the same time was the Al-Kharid-Menethos War. The Emirate of Al-Kharid on the northern fringes of the Caridian Desert and the southern populace of Menethos engage in a bloody war due to political differences. After an unknown amount of time, the Emir of Al-Kharid and the Pharaoh of Menethos establish a shaky peace treaty for the best of both powers. Nevertheless, tensions between the two remain high, and many forces looking to take over Al-Kharid still the same. In the year 132 of the 5th Age, King Arthur soon arrives. King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table arrive in Gielinor from Britain, where they are to return to should their aid be needed. King Orthus's Ardignus sees them as good men, so he gives them a large castle in his kingdom called Camelot to live in. The nobleman, Lord Sinclair, the previous owner of the land, agrees that the need of the castle is greater than his own, and moves himself and his many children to a smaller residence just to the northwest of Camelot, much to their own dismay though. In the year 136 was the division of Ardone. The third king of Candarin, King Ulthus, dies of a hunting accident, and the throne is to be passed to his two sons, Lathus and Tyrus. When the brothers cannot come to an agreement over who controls Candarin, they decide to divide Ardone in half, each taking part to be their capital. Lathus obtained East Ardone, his castle overlooking the market and the River Don itself, whilst Tyrus rules the western Ardone, bordering the Galapos. In the year 138 to the year 163 was the expansion of Arms. The recently founded military organisation Arms mobilises its armies and endeavours in nautical campaigns in the Southern Sea, led by the young Lord Marshal Brogan. In 138 a large group of elves join Arms, as they are called robbing the bank, and Brogan offers them a choice to join his organisation and make some more money, or leave. 4 years later he makes a deal with Shuddergob, the leader of a group of goblins living on an island in the sea, and they join Arms as well, receiving 20% of its profits. Finally, in the year 163, a dwarf ambassador from Keldagrim makes a contract with Brogan, allowing young Blackguard recruits to train on their various missions. In the year 139, Alvarg annihilates Crandor Isle. The Isle of Crandor, containing a thriving community with advanced technology and studies in magic, nautics and other subjects, is home to many adventurers, one of whom goes too far and descends down the island's dormant volcano. It was here that he accidentally awakens a green dragon by the name of Alvarg, in turn who actually incinerated the adventurer before leaving her lair and laying waste to the entire island, destroying one of the most advanced civilizations of the time. Some refugees did indeed manage to leave Crandor via fishing boats, setting up a camp in Rimingdon, but the dragon follows them and burns down the camp. Out of all Crandorians, the only survivors are a trio of wizards who use magic to escape. These are Thalzar, Lozar and Melzar. They split up the only surviving map of Crandor to make sure Alvarg would never be disturbed again. Melzar's piece is hidden in the castle he later inhabits, going mad in his attempts to resurrect his fallen brethren with the aid of a demon. Lozar keeps a peace with her in Lumbridge, and Thalzar takes his secret to the grave. 30 years later, an adventurer retrieves these map pieces, travels to Crandor, and eventually manages to slay Alvarg in her lair. In the year 143 was the theft of the Shield of Aarav. The Phoenix Gang, an organised crime syndicate in Varick, steals the Shield of Aarav from the Varick Museum. Some of the gang members split off to form the Black Arm Gang under Catrin Raven, who disagrees with the gang leader, Straven Enroy's decisions on what to do. The gangs soon have a fight, and the Shield of Aarav is broken in two, each gang taking half before the Black Arm permanently head for a different base. King Rold Remedus II puts up a reward of 1,200 coins for whomever manages to retrieve the shield. Sometime within the late point of the 5th Age was the Berthorpe Imperial Guard, and they were eventually formed. Crown Prince Anlaf of Asgarnia, son of King Valens, gains leadership of a small town bordering White Wolf Mountain and Death Plateau. This was known as Berthorpe. However, the town is at war with local mountain trolls, and Anlaf forms the Berthorpe Imperial Guard to fight them off. His expenses at the moment are still funded by his father. In the year 149, pests soon invade Gielinor. In order to avenge himself on his condescending colleagues at the Wizard's Tower, the mad summoner and demonologist Melville Greyzag begins to experiment with portals on islands in the Southern Sea, formerly aligned to Marimbo, which slowly but surely did indeed drive him insane. Through them, though, thousands of void pests invade the planet. Seeing this as a threat, Admiral Melrose had predicted. Admiral Boyce Kyle of the Void Knights establishes an outpost near the islands, and the Order begins to battle the extraterrestrial invaders. while Greyzag continues opening portals. Somewhere around this time was the manipulation of the Scarboroids. This was a high priest of Scarborus is tricked by a mascot into believing that she is Scarborus itself, resulting in the priest's descent into Devourer's influence. Scarboroids rediscover the long-forgotten ruins of Uleg, where they start to reside filled with traps. From there they become a formidable threat, resulting in an eventual attack on Sophanum itself by digging tunnels to the city. This was all on a mascot's orders. In the year 154 was the second assault on Varick. Fueled by the desire to claim the shield of Aarav, the Majorai Lucian, like his cousin had done centuries ago, launches an assault on Varick with an army of undead, aided by dark wizards such as Solus Delega. The attack is fended off thanks to various runestones available to the defenders of the city, and Lucian retreats without the shield and turns his attention to other artifacts. In the year 155 was the end of human nomads. The final group of human nomads outside the Caridian Desert who roam the Fremennik province settle permanently after their chieftain's daughter, Aizlith, is abducted. The tribe fears it to be the work of the Kendall, a local mountain god, and attempt to trap him in his cave by planting small trees. It would be discovered 14 years later that Aizlith was murdered and eaten by a cannibalistic man posing as the Kendall by wearing a bear suit. In the same year was the beginning of the Kintra raids. The brutal and merciless Kintra commander Sulla leads several raids of Asgarnian villages, most notably those on Ice Mountain. His invasions causes the death of many villagers and Dwarven colony members alike. At least one raid leads to the near complete extermination of a particular village, with only the infant Karamir escaping to be eventually raised by the local dwarves. Sometime near this age was the Battle of the Archipelago. Fed up with the customs anti-piracy campaign, the Pirate Council decided that the problem must be eradicated by the root, by finally taking out Rabid Jack. Mossel Harmless assembles a fleet led by captains. These were Bill Teach, One-Eyed Hector, Izzy No-Beard, Brass Hand Harry, and Brain Death, and they soon set sail to the cursed Archipelago, where Jack and his crew retaliate. Towards the end of the battle though, when only Jack's flagship the Albatross is actually intact, young Ralph, one of Harry's men, fires a cannonball, finally killing Jack's bosun Giles, and wounding the captain himself. Afterwards he is surrounded but quickly takes his chest before jumping overboard, after which his opponents soon assume he's dead. In the early 160s was the Battle of Berendir. The Berendir troll colony repeatedly assaults Dwarven miners in the area, and the Supreme Commander Bissy of the Dwarven Black Guard sends a regiment to fight them off. The Battle of Berendir would become one of the bloodiest battles in Dwarven history, to the point where civilians are soon forced to join the battle against the trolls. The Dwarven commander, Colonel Grimson, engages in one-on-one duel with the troll leader, Dwarfbone, and manages to defeat him. However, he soon goes berserk, possibly due to brain damage caused by a massive wound on his face, and kills Dwarfbone after he surrenders before scaring off the remaining trolls, and soon beginning to massacre his own men. Lieutenant Veldeban quickly warrants Grimson's arrest and he is detained. However, the Red Axe soon takes him under their wing and he becomes the right hand to Hreidmar, the company's villainous director. In the year 163 was the massacre at Ghost Town. Lord Shadwell, Lord of Kintra, leads his army to the ghost town west of Varick. One of his men, notorious wizard Solus Delega, betrays the Kintra. However, he does begin to needlessly slaughter hundreds of civilians against Shadwell's orders. Soon White as well as Temple Knights arrive, but the three orders combined are unable to stop the Murder Mage, who proceeds to massacre yet another 800 or more knights, including Lord Shadwell himself. He is eventually apprehended by Temple Knights and exiled from Asgarnia. Shadwell is succeeded by Lord Milton. In the year 169, Delagar returned but was quickly apprehended by a new recruit and taken in for interrogation. In the same year was the Asgarnia Civil Wars. Sir Amak Vaz, leader of the White Knights and steward for King Valence, King of Asgarnia, who had allegedly fallen ill, left the running of Asgarnia to Sir Mick, and he soon declares that the Kintra are to have no political power whatsoever anymore, sometime after the Edgeville incident. In retaliation to this, Lord Milton declares war on Asgarnia, and his commander, Darkrius, leads an army to Falador, and soon enough a battle erupts between the Black and White Knights. However, neither side is able to advance, and the battle is eventually ended in a truce. A few months later, Commander Sulla commits a coup, ordering the assassination of Lord Milton and becoming the new Lord of the Kintra. Sometime around now was the Dawn Ascent, which was Sir Amag Vaz launching a campaign to the Black Knight's fortress to apprehend Ivan, a powerful and ambitious knight trained by Decrerius. However, Ivan refuses to yield and attacks with his troops. Many White Knights fall to his blade until one of them, Sir Owen Sond, assassinates Ivan from a hill, ignoring this strict code of chivalry. The remaining Black Knights presumably retreat, while Owen is reprimanded and joins the Temple Knights. Soon after, the witch Cardia finds and takes Ivan's body, planning to resurrect him. In the year 164 was the War of 164. The vampire noble Tenebra sends the werewolf Jarod to capture his nephew Garth, who is trying to flee his werewolf heritage. At the same time, Sir Amag Vaz orders Squire Theodore to find out about Karamia, a young girl who appeared out of nowhere. Kara, Theodore, and the wizard Castamir, the scientist Ebenezer, and the priestess Dorisha Doric, and Garth head for the Edgeville Monastery, which is destroyed in a joint Kindra Chaos Dwarf attack, with Jared attempting to capture Garth, which soon began the War of 164. This war was between the White Knights and the Kintra. They escape and flee to Falador, where the Kintra's amassed forces launch an attack, which results in a heavy defeat for the Kintra, while Commander Decrerius is sent to subdue Berthorpe. The Kintra Lord Sula flees, and Arisha, Kara and Garth track him down, while Theodore travels to Varick to recruit peons, alongside Castamir, Ebenezer and Doric, who go for the Midsummer Festival. After the siege, Decrerius is unanimously elected new Lord of Kintra. Jared's pursuers track him to Varick, where they, along with Castamir and Theodore, fight a weird, but fail to kill or capture it. King Roald III sends an envoy to Mauritania to demand the return of some captured children. The envoy returns minus Garth and the scientist Albertus Black, who was killed. The Inquisition of Saradomin is set up to deal with the increasing Zamorakian threat, while Garth attempts to assassinate Tenebra. Castamir, Arisha, and a barbarian by the name of Crumb head to the wilderness to retrieve some rune essence to strengthen the River Selve. The war ends with the Battle of the Selve, where Garth and Karamir succeed in defeating Tenebra and destroy the commander of the zombie army. In the year 165 was the assassination of Sulla. Having fled after being crippled by Karamir at the siege of Falador, Sulla, under the care of the werewolf Jarod, retreats to the wilderness under constant risk of assassination by Lord Decrerius' search parties. Eventually, after travelling through Miscellanea, Sulla attempts to escape Asgarnia from Port Sarim by ship, but is soon murdered by Jarod. In the year 168 was King Tyrus' leave of West Ardone. King Tyrus Ardignus leaves West Ardone with a small army to venture into Tiranan through the underground pass. This was supposedly to explore the Western Realm. However, the resurrected Lord Ivan seizes control of the pass and corrupts the Well of Voyage, turning it into the Well of the Damned. He rules the pass as self-proclaimed son of Zamorak and begins to form an army of soulless, leaving Tyrus trapped in his Aftar, where his men build Port Tyrus. West Ardone is soon taken under control by his brother Lathus, who had secretly forged an alliance with Lord Iorwerth, who promised him to aid in the destruction of Camelot. Armies of disguised Iorwerth elves, mourners, infiltrate West Ardone and put it under quarantine, claiming there is a contagious plague. This was to allow them to dig to the Temple of Light undisturbed. In the same year, Moya infiltrated Daemonheim. After nearly 5 centuries of searching, the now aged Moya discovers Bilrak's immense dungeon complex beneath Daemonheim, and soon infiltrates his ranks by stealing the minds of several people within, in addition to killing Yadura in a duel. a necrolord aspiring to overthrow Bilrak. She eventually encounters him in the deepest part and reveals the discovery of his new portal magic, which serves as a large power source and a substitute to Rejuvenation for Moya. The two of them soon travel to the Rift and soon meet up with Zamorak. Moya becomes the god's pupil in general, whilst Bilrak is never seen again. In the year 169 was the Renovation of Edgeville. King Rold Raminus III of Miscellanea commissions the renovation of the ghost town northwest of Varick, a small village occupying the ground where Pedewa once stood, and which had fallen into dilapidation, not least due to the actions of Solus Delaga at the Edgeville incident 6 years prior. The town is rebuilt and named Edgeville, likely for its proximity to the wilderness. In the same year, goblins attack Lumbridge. Local goblins launch an invasion on part of Lumbridge located east of the River Lum. They succeed in destroying several homes such as that of Lactoffer and evil Pummel Lozar, one of the survivors of the annihilation of Crandor, to death. Duke Horatio's guardsmen react by attacking the goblins and arresting some. Although the attack is warded off, goblins still remain in East Lumbridge in large groups. In the year 169 was also the occupation of Patadermus. A group of Zamorakian monks orchestrate a blitz attack on Temple Patadermus and end up killing the Saradominist priests inside, preventing the news from reaching Miscellanea. One monk by the name of Drezel is imprisoned on the top floor near the coffin of a powerful vampire, and at least 2 manage to escape to Mauritania. The Zamorakians destroy the interior of the temple in an attempt to remove traces of Saradominism. The precise reason for their attack still to this day remains unknown. The same year was Morwenna's attack on Archdale. A recently resurrected necromancer from the 4th Age known as Morwenna the Cruel attacks the peaceful island of Archdale in an attempt to get revenge on the dwarf Gudrick, who had previously raided her tomb. She summons a number of zombies, but they are defeated by a novice adventurer who was being trained by Gudrick. After a fight between the adventurer and Morwenna, she disintegrates, leaving only her Morwenna's headdress behind, and peace soon returned to the isle. In the same year was an attack on Tavali. After being denied access to the secret summoning, the Beastmaster Khan invades Tavali with a large group of wild animals, and ends up kidnapping pickup sticks in the resulting chaos. He then retreats to Daemonheim where he forces the druid to teach him, after which he begins to amass an army of bandits, familiars and a hypnotized behemoth. However, Khan is pursued by Sir Owen, a knight present at the Tavali incident, along with 2 of his acquaintances, Ariana and Ozan. It was here the trio actually managed to save Pickup Sticks and fight and finally kill Khan. In the same year was the death of Victor Draken. A new resident of Draenor village, Morgan, enlists the aid of an adventurer to rid the village of Count Victor Draenor Draken, who had been terrorizing it from the Draenor Manor ever since he was trapped west of the River Selve, along with his servant Ruenton, during the Miscellanea-Mauritania War. With the advice of a local vampire hunter, Dr. Harlow, the adventurer confronts the Count and weakens him before driving a stake through his heart, petrifying the vampire and ending his terrible reign. In the same year was yet another attempt to destroy the Wizard's Tower. Elrond, heir to the Sacred Order of the Staff of Fire, attempts to secretly destroy the Wizard's Tower to avenge the Red Wizards, by manipulating his former student Ariana. As a result of his plot, Ariana becomes trapped in the teleportation beam at the bottom of the first ruin, and ends up being put into a magical coma. Spirits of the old wizards possess her and the magical energies threatens to rip her apart, leveling the tower as a result. However, Ariana is released by an adventurer and with the spirits take over Elrond's body instead before teleporting him to the Abyss, where he is annihilated, saving the Wizard's Tower in the process. In the same year was the attack of Delrith and Agrithnar. 150 years after being banished by Wally, Delrith is once more summoned to lay waste to Varick. this time by the insane dark wizard Deneth. However, the demon is narrowly defeated by an adventurer and Gulfred Bach, Wali's descendant. And Deneth flees to the Caridian desert where he gains a substantial following. When other members of Bach's demon slaying organization found out Deneth's cult are planning to summon the demon Agrithnar to Gielinor, they dispatch the adventurer once more to stop him. However, the ritual is performed and it is revealed Deneth had been Agrithnar trapped in a human form all this time. From the infernal dimensions, he attacks the desert with sandstorms, but is resummoned and slain by the adventurer and their allies, including some of the cult members. In the same year, we saw the return of Mother Malum. Colonies of sea slugs soon became active around Caridian fishing town of Witchhaven, possessing most of the town's population. The Temple Knights begin an investigation and send an initiate to sort things out. However, they're tricked and then possessed. They are tricked by the possessed mayor, Orslis Hobb, into opening Mother Malum's prison, releasing her. She returns to the Slug Citadel and plans to resume her plans of world domination. However, the initiate, now a proselyte, along with 3 friends, infiltrates her lair and confronts the mother. In the subsequent skirmish, she is initially on the winning hand, until one of her opponents, the knight Eva Cashin, topples a nearby pillar which falls on top of Mother Malum and squashes her, ending her reign and liberating all those possessed by slugs. In the same year was the assassination of Tyrus. An adventurer discoverer of the plague. An adventurer discovers the plague of West Ardone is actually a hoax and confronts King Lathas with it, who in turn forges a story that he maintains a fake threat to protect the city from his evil brother Tyrus, who had been corrupted by the Dark Lord, forcing him to drink from the Chalice of Eternity. On the king's orders, the tricked adventurer cleanses the Well of the Damned by destroying Ivan's soul, thus removing the corruption from Underground Pass, and in turn meets with Lord Iorwerth of Tiranan. The latter instructs them on how to assassinate King Tyrus, to which they comply. Before they report back to Lathas, however, Arianan, leader of the rebel elves, reveals that they had been fooled, prompting the adventurer to join the rebels behind Iorwerth and Lathas' back. Their first act was to infiltrate the Privdinus Death Guard and restore the safeguard to the Temple of Light, thus preventing the mourners from tapping the power from the Death Altar. Later they discovered the Corridor of Light, a passage into the Undercity of Privdinus, which the Elven Elders had reverted to its seed form. In the same year was the plot to invoke the Human Gnome War. The megalomaniac, a misanthropic gnome, and guardian of the Grand Tree, Gloth, hires a gullible human, Charlie, to retrieve Draconia rocks from Hazelmere, the only items able to kill the tree. Charlie is subsequently arrested, but an adventurer manages to prove Gloth's guilt to King Narod, and he is fired and put under house arrest before the tree is rescued. However, one of his agents, Gnome Liaison Officer Karanok, continues to oversee the construction of a large fleet on Karamja to invade the human kingdoms. He, as well as his accomplice, the pilot Wadar, also attempt to convince King Awawogi of Abatol to declare war on the humans. However, the adventurer manages to foil this plot as well, defeating Gloth's jungle demon and rescuing the 10th squad, which he had detained by the monkeys. In the same year was the plot to reclaim Camelot. Angry at his decision to donate Camelot's castle to King Arthur, Lord Sinclair's children murder him, but are put under house arrest in the Sinclair mansion. Afterwards, they form an alliance with the Renegade Knights and the Kinshra to reclaim Camelot, under Morgan Alefley. The Renegade Knights kidnap Arthur and petrify him before sending him to the Black Knight's fortress to be kept there. The Knights of the Round Table and Merlin are incarcerated under Cape Lefay, but released by an allied adventurer. The latter purges the Sinclairs from Camelot and undoes Arthur's curse before returning him to Camelot once more, where the Renegade Knights are then soon permanently defeated. Soon after was the unification of the Fremenic Isles. An adventurer becomes the Regent of Miscellanea due to its monarch, King Vargas, having been turned into a Yetian. An expedition many years prior. Afterwards, they discover a group of Relican children are stealing possessions from Miscellanean and Exeterian subjects, and return all stolen belongings before a war breaks out, unifying the two kingdoms. Afterwards, they attempt to settle the feud between Vargas, Mornis Barawerga, and Brunt, discovering what had happened on their hunt for the legendary prophecy tablets, and brewing a cure for Vargas along the way. Vargas and Queen Sigrid of Exetria proceed to get married. In the same year was the rise of the Myarchy. The Myarchy was a secret organization aiming to liberate Mauritania from the vampires, and it grows weaker and weaker as supplies begin to run out and its members are killed on sight. Vanstrom Kloss, Lawernial Dragon's most powerful agent, is also hunting the Myarchy to capture one of their lieutenants, Safalan, the son of Queen Eferede. After triggering an adventurer into helping him, he kills two members, Sani and Harold, before sending his skeleton hellhound after the others. The adventurer, realizing their mistake, slays and soon joins the Myarchy. After moving them to a new hideout in Bergderot, they save the refugee town from Gadaranks and forge a new vampire-slaying weapon by locating the tomb of Evandis Sierges. Afterwards, they make contact with Safalan and the Sanguinesti division. They soon ask King Rold III for aid, which results in the establishment of a mercenary protocol, and discover the secret of High-Malky, which is used to be studied in Draken's laboratories. Later still, they aid in the creation of even more potent weapons, arming the Myarchy against the Firewatch, let alone vampires. In the same year, we see the reconstruction of Santistan Temple. An influential Zarosian desert bandit by the name of Eblis hires an adventurer to seek the 4 diamonds of Azanadra, and release the Majara from Jeldrak Pyramid. They proceed to do so and learn the ancient magics from Azanadra, who discovers the God Wars had ended. Zaros had not communicated with him and the world had generally changed before leaving to recover. A few weeks later though, he disguises himself as the human archaeologist Dr. Nabanek, and with his saviour's help begins restoring the Santistan Temple. The adventurer then gathers 3 items to help restore communication with Zaros, and Azanadra constructs a communication portal to finally make contact with his god after many millennia. Next you have the resurfacing of the Dorgeshan kind. Tectonic activity causes the Dorgeshan to accidentally dig into the cellar of a Glumbridge castle. Although they close the hole, the responsible miner is spotted. Sigmund, advisor to Duke Horatio, proceeds to steal the latter's silverware and blames it on the Dorgeshan in an attempt to evoke war. Being a member of the Humans Against Monsters and aiming to destroy the non-human races. However, an adventurer soon foils this plot, prompting Horatio to fire Sigmund and to form a peace treaty with the Dorgeshan, as they take one of the goblins, the adventurous girl Zanek, to explore the surface. They discover Ham's plot to dig into the Dorgeshan mines and have the River Lum flood Dorgesh Khan. However, they do manage to stop Sigmund this time as well. As they're about to kill him, he brought to safety by a Ring of Life. With Dorgesh Khan safe, Councillor Urtag agrees to open it to humans. The Dorgeshan also establish a train link with Keldgrim, opening the city to dwarf kind as well. Which soon brings us over to the next point, which was the plot to take over Keldgrim. The director of the Red Axe, Hreidmar, secretly begins to create a massive army of Chaos Dwarfs in various bases outside Keldgrim with the aid of the Arbosandran, gnomes and his accomplices, Colonel Grimson and Gnush. Also an ogre shaman with the power to erase minds. Having learned that he is a descendant of King Alvis, Hreidmar plans to use various spies as well as his army, consisting mostly of converted dwarves that he has kidnapped from Keldgrim's east side. And he would use these to take over Keldgrim and assume the title of king. However, the Black Guard commander Veldaban and a human adventurer begin to investigate the Red Axe after the company leaves the consortium due to Hreidmar's head not being chosen for the replacement of the large statue of Elvis that had accidentally been broken. In their attempts to stop the Red Axe, Veldeban resigns from the Blackguard and grudgingly becomes King of Keldgrim to prevent Freydmard from doing so, nearly starting a revolution in the city. The Red Axe continue to experiment with the gnomes' chaos machines, creating monstrous chaos Dwogers and chaos giants. This year also saw the return of Rabbit Jack. Captain Rabbit Jack, who is thought to have committed suicide at the Battle of the Archipelago, returns as an undead, complete with a zombie pirate crew and breeding on revenge on Mos the Harmless. He has Captain Donnie's the inebriated lay sage to brain death oil, where he acquires large amount of brain death's artificially produced hyper-condensed sweetened rum-flavoured distillant, which he uses to create an army of dangerous mutated crabs. Meanwhile, General Surgeon Megor and Mechanical Murphy build a factory on blood spatter oil, producing dozens of highly dangerous barrel chest automatons. The former also besiege Harmony Oil to harvest the inhabitant monks for his crew. An adventurer in service of the Pirate Council aids the various captains of Mos the Harmless in stopping Jack's plot, and even averts a direct attack on the island orchestrated by Megor and Murphy using a Zomboat armada. It was in the year 169 that industrialization and global warming came to mind. The heavy industrialized power station of Drorkar the Dwarf, located near the Dwarven mine in Asgarnia, is thought to have been causing global warming, which begins with Ice Mountain and its fauna melting. The Oracle predicts some extreme climate change if the power station, which produces lots of greenhouse gases due to the power coming from coal and dragonfire, is not shut down. With the help of Brother Bordus, an adventurer convinces Nermoth, a dwarf merchant who needs the station, to transform it into an environment-friendly project using wind energy, thus averting an apocalypse. Once again, we see the invasion of Varick. In preparation for the upcoming ritual of rejuvenation, Zamorgul assembles an army of undead to once more invade Varick in an attempt to claim the Shield of Aarav for himself, so that he may subjugate the other Majara to his will. His plans, however, are discovered by an adventurer, who calls on the aid of one of the last surviving Incamdo dwarfs. In the ruins of Camdazel, the Sacred Forge tells them that the descendant of the founder of Avarokan can stop the zombie invasion, and in turn they proceed to locate the descendant in the midst of Zamorgul's invasion. They do indeed manage to find them, a minor noble by the name of Diminithis Fitzharmon. In time, he manages to use the shield to annihilate all zombies. Defeated, Zamorgul retreats and heads northwards, with his second-in-command, Sharaturk and Aarav, following close behind. In the same year we seen the attempted return of Bandos. When Zanuck died at the hands of the Ham during her infiltration of the organization, the adventurer took her corpse to the Tears of Guthix. It was here that Bandos resurrected her to be his chosen commander, thus commencing his plan to return to Gielinor by working around the Edicts of Guthix and reclaiming the Dorgeshan. After Zanuck, the scientist Oldak and the adventurer learn of Ubiusk's fate. The former opens a box placed there by Bandos, transporting her to Bandos' throne room. It was there she finds a pendant, and, oblivious to the fact that the war god has stored the most power within this pendant, equips it before leaving the palace through the portal. The pendant's power gradually soon takes over Zanuck's mind, and she eventually becomes Bandos' chosen commander, leading an army of goblins against Sigmund's splinter group, killing the former advisor in the process. However, the adventurer releases Zanuck from Bandos' clutches and the pendant is found by the High Priest Bighead, who puts it on and transforms into Bandos' avatar. The avatar breaks into Dorgesh Khan and leaves the god's ultimatum for the Dorgeshan, to which the council, on Zanuck's advice, responds by taking the fight to the god as an ultimate act of defiance. Using a crossbow with powers against divinity, Zanuck and the adventurer face the avatar and defeat it before destroying the pendant, thus preventing Bandos' return and weakening him immensely. In the same year we saw the battle for Relica. After an adventurer and Fremennik slays the Draganoth mother infesting the local lighthouse, her daughter begins to prepare an invasion on the Fremennik province and isles. As is written on the prophecy tablets, an army of Dagonoth and Walasalki invade Relica. In the midst of the battle, Chieftain Brunt, Koshkai the Deathless, and an adventurer joined the united fleet of Miscellanea and etc. to assault Waterbirth Oil. It was there that King Vargas, who had been kidnapped, is rescued, and the adventure proceeds to slay the Dagonath Mother's guardians, while Princess Astrid and Prince Brand, Koshkai and Baba Yaga of the Moon Clan battle the Dagonath kings. The Dagonath Mother is soon defeated and trapped in a cave-in, rather than killed, so as to prevent a new mother from hatching, and the army attacking Relica retreats. Astrid and Brand, who fell to the kings, are burned in funeral pyres. We also saw the release of the Pest Queen during this time. After learning about the legendary Valuta as being the only weapon able to stop the Pest Queen, Greyzak devises a plan to obtain it. After assuming a disguise, he makes an alliance with the Kintra, lying to Lord Aquarius that he will supply them with a Void Leech, whose life-sapping goo could be used to subdue Falador. By manipulating Jessica, a gullible researcher working with the Void Knights, Greyzak obtains a leech and kills nearly everybody of the party sent to find it, with the aid of a pest army. The Kintra produce immense quantities of the goo in a special workshop and keep it in their storeroom as they slowly begin to inject them into Falador. The Void, Temple, as well as the White Knights stop the attack and trace it back to the Kintra, just when Aquarius discovers someone had stolen all the boxes with goo. The other factions arrive and manage to convince the reluctant Aquarius to join their alliance and stop the mastermind behind the plot, whom the Knights discover to be Greyzak by going through the portal he had left behind. They soon confront him and defeat the Pest army before witnessing him sapping the power of the Valuta, who was actually a guardian of Guthix, and, in turn, summoned the terrifying Pest Queen. The Queen is soon defeated after a long and tough battle with Greyzak, whose mental state had collapsed to the point where he is a babbling nonsense, and it was here and there that he was finally dealt with. Towards the end of this year, we saw the 18th ritual of Rejuvenation. The Majara gather in the north once more to sacrifice one of their own. Aside from the various Majara released from their respective prisons that year, an alliance between the Crew Quell, the Temple Knights and the Guardians of Armadil attend the ritual in an attempt to stop Lucian, who declares himself leader of the Majara. After various battles, Lucian pulls up Jalan from his icy abode beneath and he is sacrificed, but not before Aarav is freed from Zamorgal's curse, and every attending person turns against Lucian. The aspiring god then proceeds to tap power from the Stone of Jazz, which in turn summoned 3 Necrocertes, who slay him after a short brawl, breaking the Staff of Armadil in the process. Most of the people present teleport to safety, while the dragon can leave to cool their rage by ravaging Edgeville. Right at the end of the year, we see the plot to exterminate the Czar. The Tokar attempt to force their brethren, the Czar, to return to the Elder Kiln which they had left ages ago, by blocking a node in the Tzgot Zo, thus preventing the kiln's sacred lava from reaching the Czar city. As a result, the Karamja volcano begins to cool down, causing the majority of the Czar eggs to hatch as anomalous Gal, who do not possess any of the memories usually passed on to the next generations. The Gal's birth begin to outnumber the Czar ones, threatening the race with extinction. Czar Mezgja and Ak decide to send an adventurer, and Gal Zox, who had developed intelligence since his birth, to the kiln itself, where they earn the respect of the Tokar Hok, who fuses Zox with the Tokal of Tazar Ket Yedil, thus releasing a tortured spirit into Tok's body, as he finds out, to his great shock, that the spirits of the dead Tazar remain trapped in Tokal. Although Tazar are initially reluctant to do something about this, Jer changes his mind when Zox slays Ak before reopening the Tzot Zo, and fusing with Ak's Tokal, causing Ak to beg to be released from torment. As a result, the volcano is reheated, saving the Tazar, while the remaining Gal are incorporated as a separate caste. His task complete, Zox refuses with the sacred lava, releasing Ak and Yetal from the prisons. And lastly, we have the penultimate event that happened in the 5th Age, which declares the end of the 5th Age, which was the Assassination of Guthix. Archaeologist Orlando Smith discovered a cave Guthix retreated to at the end of the 3rd Age and proceeds to explore with the aforementioned adventurer, before being incinerated by the Automaton Guardians. Shortly after this, Sliskay appears and convinces the adventurer who survived to join the soon-to-arrive Guthixian party, and protect the God of Balance from other factions, who, Sliske predicted, would invade in an attempt to slay Guthix to break his edicts, and return the respective god to Runescape. Before waking Guthix upon reaching him so that he and his fellow Erosians could negotiate their god's return with him, true enough, the adventurer joins the party of the Guardians of Guthix, and allied druids arriving to save their god and fights off Kriara, General Grador, Zamorgul, Krill Sutzeroth, Inakra and Commander Ziliana and their respective troops. Losing one of the Guardians, Krez, in the process and becoming the World Guardian themselves. At that moment a small Zerosian party led by Azanadra arrives when Sliske betrays his allies and breaks into Guthix's chamber, soon before killing the god. He did so with the Staff of Armadil, which he had stolen from the Dragonkin after the last ritual of rejuvenation. And it was with Guthix's death, his edicts were soon abolished, allowing the gods to return to Gilnor, of whom Saradomin was the first, and in doing so, ended the 5th Age. So there we go, that is a brief overview of some of the major events in the 5th Age. Honestly, there is so much that happened in the 5th Age, it would take hours to cover, because pretty much 90% of the game is consistent with everything that happened in the 5th Age, so yeah. Hopefully this gives you a pretty good idea of everything that happened and may even remind you of some things. But that was the brief overview of the 5th Age. I say brief, what's this, like 50 minutes long? So there we go. 5th Age, brief overview, keep in mind brief, and still took an hour. So with that said, I hope you all enjoyed. This was a big old lore, gotta be honest. And yeah, next one will probably be Sliske. I think we might have to cover Sliske. So until next time people, I will catch you all later. Have a good one.